Hi guys and welcome back. At this point I've guide coated the body shell and it's just a case of blocking it down and getting it ready for primer. But I can't quite get on with that yet. So I have made a start just blocking down the bonnet, and on the data sheet you use a 120 to a 240 disc to sand it down. And what I found using a 240 disc, whether it be using it manually, block sanding or on the DA, it does seem to clog up. So I switched to a 120 and that seems to be pretty good, but I'm actually out of 120 discs. So you know what they say, fail to prepare, prepare to fail. I forgot to order the 120 discs. They should be arriving tomorrow so I can get on with sanding down the body shell. But until then, I do have to get the insides of those doors primed. So I've just applied 2 coats of standard primer on the inside of these doors, but prior to that I did run a bead of sealant over the repair panel here. Any areas of bare metal I did actually spray with the anti-corrosion primer. Also, I did spend quite a bit of time just scotching and degreasing, just trying to get into all these areas just to make sure I haven't missed anything before the primer went on. So there's not really much I can do at this point except let the primer dry. I've got a couple of little pinholes that I've noticed in the filler on the bottom of the door repair, but the sanding discs that I ordered have actually turned up now. So I can finally get on with sanding the resin primer. And according to the data sheet here, I should be using 120 to 240 grit to prepare this area for primer. But I already know that using 240 grit does clog up the paper a bit too quickly. So I'll be using 120 and I'll be cleaning the disc off with compressed air and maybe a small wire brush. So I'm not really looking forward to this next bit. It's going to be a lot of hard work. This primer is pretty tough stuff to rub down, but I'm sure it'll be worth it in the end. So that has actually taken quite a bit of time, but I have managed to rub down a lot of this resin primer. So I've been using a little bit of a combination, everything from the DA sander to hand sanding these panels using grades from 120 to 240 grit. And in areas where are really difficult to get into, I've been using red Scotch. So I've still got a bit to do. I've got to go underneath the wheel arches. There's areas in the back as well as on the front here that need keying up still. So I did manage to rub through in some areas. I could reapply some resin primer, but I'm more likely just to use the good quality rust resistant etch primer that I've got on these areas. And also I've uncovered a couple of little dings and dents. For example, you can see here there's a dent that's appeared in the guide coat. So now is a great opportunity to do areas like this and of course that rear valance. So I've still got some daylight and the workshop's relatively warm, so I wouldn't mind putting a coat of primer inside this deck lid. So that's the inside of the deck lid done. I've just applied 2 heavy coats of primer. Well, I'm glad you guys are still watching after all that rubbing down. I must admit, it can be tedious and boring for the watcher and also the doer. But yeah, thanks for watching to the very end. The thing is, when doing jobs like this, you're having to do things multiple times. For example, the primer, and then you get on with the paint, but it just does take forever. I mean, it'd be great just to have a magic wand that I could just wave over this car and it would miraculously build itself and paint itself, but that doesn't actually exist. Unfortunately, it really is just a lot of hard graft. So it is starting to get a bit dark in the workshop, starting to get a bit chilly, but I'm going to carry on rubbing this down. Thanks as always for tuning in, and I'll see you next time. Cheers!
That's it all.